Right, folks, this is a bit of a departure from your usual. I am actually in Benmore Botanic Garden at the top of the Chilean hillside. It is, as you can see, absolutely gorgeous up here. Now, because there's not much happening at the Linn at the moment, I figured I would do a little bit of a departure over the winter because I will be working on my honours thesis. I'm at the end of my BSc in Botanical Horticulture at the Royal Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. And in order to complete fourth year, I have to do basically an honours dissertation. And what that is, for me, is about the monkey puzzle trees at Benmore. Now, I don't know if any of you follow my other social media stuff, but I visited actual monkey puzzle forests in Chile a year or so ago. I know people throw around phrases like life-changing experience, but holy shit, it was a life-changing experience. It was just one of the most incredible things I've ever seen. However, this project comes back. Now, I remember when we first bought the Linn, one of the first things that I did was come out here to Benmore because, you know, Charlie Hunt, who was helping me work in the garden back then, and myself, we just thought we'd come and visit local gardens, really, just to try and get a feel for it. And what are the things that we noticed, even like 3-4 years ago that was now, is that you can see these guys are just a touch yellow. Now, if you look at your healthy monkey puzzle trees, this guy, beautiful, beautiful dark green, wonderful dense branching, very, very dense foliage. These guys are a little bit younger, but they're quite yellow. And even 4 years ago, they were turning yellow. And so the project came up as an option, like try and figure out what's going on here. And because obviously I'd been out here and I'd noticed it before I jumped on it, obviously also I had my fundamentalist epiphany. Now, I used to be quite anti-monkey puzzle because of the way they get used in suburban gardens, which I don't really like that much, to be honest. But you see them in the wild in their natural habitat, and it's just mind-blowing. I think people say, like, tree lovers, you should visit the eucalyptus of Australia, the giant redwoods of the Pacific Northwest, and the monkey puzzles. I mean, there's probably tons of others, to be honest with you, but you know, those three get brought up all the time, and it was incredible. So the monkey puzzle, it just seemed like a really natural fit for me. So I'm here to try and figure out why what should look like that is looking kind of like this, and I'll show you the three main symptoms if I can do so without absolutely killing myself. So if you come in close here, you'll see there's this yellowing of the foliage, which is not normal. You'll see that you get this blackening of the trunk, and it tends to start out at the nodes. So the nodes start to turn black, and then it spreads along the trunk. And I've picked a bad tree here, but then you also get this sort of white ooze down at the bottom, this sort of exudate. So these are the three main symptoms. And so first and foremost, what I'm trying to do is quantify them. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to make a map of this whole area with all of these. See them, 1, 2, 3, 4, like tons of monkey puzzles everywhere. I'm going to make a map of them all. I'm going to grade the yellowing of the leaves, the blackening of the trunk, and the nastiness of the ooze on a scale of 0, not present, 1, a little bit, 2, some, and 3, quite bad. And so then that will give me a map of like where all the worst trees are, where the healthy trees are, because as I say, this guy's sick, this guy's quite healthy. Now, the problem is then it gets complicated because there's a million things that it could be. Now, in their natural habitat, these guys grow on pretty rubbish soil. It's pumice, effectively. It's degrading basalt plains, lava flow basalt plains from volcanic activity in the southern Andes. Now that means the soil is rubbish. There's a lot of moisture because it rains a lot down there, but there's great drainage. Now, this is Benmore, and you can see they've been trying to work on the drainage already. And if you look at that soil there, it's not the sandiest, but it's quite tricky. You can see there's lots of rock up here. Effectively, what they've said to me is these trees are planted where they can actually dig a big enough hole to get the root ball in, because it's basically stone with a very thin layer of moss on top. But then you still get areas like this down here where the drainage is just not really happening. I mean, that, you know, that's quite clay, isn't it, really? You know, if you look at that. So you can start to look at that. You can start to look at the fact that the rainfall means there's potentially like nutrient poisoning in this soil. It's always worth investigating. That was suggested to me. You could start to look at the fact that you've got these big pockets here. So while certain aspects of this site might be quite free draining because it's on a fairly steep slope, you could end up with little pockets here, which, and you know, look at all that moss growing in there. That's sort of an indication of a fairly high level of moisture. So you could end up looking at that. There's a million different things that you could end up investigating. So my thesis is to figure out what the hell's going on with these things. And the first thing I'm doing now is marching around this garden and making a map of all of the monkey puzzle trees and grading how sick they are. We've got the Forestry Commission in at the moment who are looking into Phytophthora ramorum, which is rampant in Benmore because of all the conifer plantations around. They're having to take down 300 larch. So we're going to get a bit of external help, and my job is going to be to collate all this sort of external information, including, say, for example, the genetic material, because that's recorded by the International Conifer Conservation Project, who gave Benmore these trees. So map them out, look at the genetic provenance, look at the topography here, see if it really is free draining or not, see if there's Phytophthora present, and sort of overlay all this information on my map of the sickest and the healthiest trees and see if there is a correlation of anything that consistently turns up in the sick trees and is less prevalent in the healthy trees. Now, obviously, this is going to take a while. And this is going to be... this is why I figured I'd do this wee video, because I can talk you through the progress of this. We're going to do a drone survey to see if we can get the topography of the land and see if there are little pockets where it should or shouldn't be free draining. Talk you through that. We're going to do some... As I said, the Forestry Research Scotland are doing some tests themselves. And this is what I've got to get done, ready to hand in for end of March, and hopefully gain my BSc brackets ons in botanical horticulture, at which point I become at least somewhat more qualified than I was when I started all this nonsense.